Hello and welcome everyone to the Wizard and the Priestess. Wizard here again. Today, going to talk about a part of the body that many people seem to have troubles with at the moment for whatever reason, whether it's Mercury retrograde, Venus is doing a backflip, Jupiter farted, I don't know. But something happened, something is happening in the stars, and everyone has a sore shoulder or sore shoulders for some reason. And I want to share this with you today because a lot of people might have a sore shoulder and they don't know what to do with it. And I know a lot of people's, I guess, initial reaction is to see a doctor, to see a physio, to see chiropractor, osteo, massage, whoever, whatever it is. And I'm just going to, and now this is, I'm going to generalize here, but I'm going to just give you some information on the typical physio chiro. And I know it's a very blanket statement, but it doesn't apply to all of them, but in general, and most of the time, the feedback I get is this. So I'm just going to give you some insights on when someone comes to me with a shoulder issue, as an example, things that really need to be considered. And because everyone in the world's got a shoulder issue, I hope this sparks you to potentially look a little bit deeper, or maybe even to look at something completely different. Because most people think that shoulder pain is a shoulder problem. Now, there is no such thing as a shoulder problem. There is no such thing as a neck problem. There's no such thing as a lower back problem or a knee problem. It's a body problem, period. For some reason, your body has just chosen that shoulder, that neck, that body part to compensate and be sore. Now, with a typical Western approach, we'll call it, what you will find is you will go to an allied healthcare professional. Now, this can be chiro, physio, doctor, whoever it is, and you'll say, my shoulder hurts, and they will typically look at one, maybe two joints, and that's it. They will usually look at the glenohumeral joint, which is the ball and socket, and the acromioclavicular joint, which is the AC joint, which is just above the glenohumeral. And outside that, if they test those joints and the joints seem to be fine, well, that's tick. You don't have a shoulder problem. So that's one way of looking at that issue. It's kind of very 2D in its approach, and it's kind of easier to take in a way because it's fairly simple. But then what can those joints do without the other 120 odd joints in the body? Nothing. So one view is quite comfortable to take. The other one means you need to have a lot more of a holistic thought approach. Now, the shoulder itself is, depending on what book you read and what you define, I guess, where the shoulder starts and the neck begins, and where the shoulder ends and the neck begins, all those kinds of things. The shoulder can be anywhere from 4 to 6 joints. Typically, the glenohumeral joint, AC joint, the SC joint, sternoclavicular joint. The first rib, in my opinion, both ends, are part of the shoulder. The scapulothoracic joint, and the little joint that not many people really consider to be a thing, which is the sternal costal-chondral cledoid joint, which is just behind the clavicle. Now, depending which way you want to look at it, from front to back or back to front, that name will change. But it's the little articulation from first rib as it goes into the sternum at the front. But the shoulder complex includes clavicle, ribs, scapula, and the humerus, which is our funny bone. So all of those need to be looked at as well. Now, if you look at the position of the shoulder sits on the rib cage. So therefore, if you've got a shoulder problem, you've got a rib cage problem. The rib cage anchors itself into the thoracic spine. So if you've got a shoulder problem, you've also got a spine problem. The innervation for the shoulder comes from the neck. So if you've got a shoulder problem, you've got a neck problem. The neck is a slave to the upper neck and the head. So if you've got a shoulder problem, you've got a head neck problem. And due to biomechanics and the way the slings function in the body, the right shoulder, for example, swings the same as the left hip. And you'll notice someone walking who's got quite a locked up left hip, let's say, their right arm will swing more because the movement has to come from somewhere. So the arm will generate the rotation so you can get that gait pattern. So if you've got a shoulder problem, you've also got a hip problem. As you can see, the list goes on and on and on. Now, the shoulder itself, again, 4 to 6 joints, depending how you want to see it. It's also got 2 nerve plexuses. So cervical plexus and brachial plexus. Brachial meaning arm, plexus meaning bunch of nerves. So that connects directly to the shoulder, and the nerves run down through the shoulder into the hand. So some people with shoulder issues, it can actually be a neck thing, but as we'll go into, it can be from almost anywhere in the body. So we have joints, we have nerves. We've got lots of little ligaments. We've got an anterior posterior capsule. We've got labrum, we've got bursas. But also we have a lot of lymph nodes in the axa, the axillary lymph nodes, which kind of feel like little grains of rice if you massage into the pec. That's usually a swollen lymph node. There's no less than about 18 muscles in each shoulder. They also connect to the neck or the hyoid. Everyone talks about the rotator cuff. That's like the rock star of the shoulder. The rotator cuff is kind of like the core muscle for the shoulder. It's only 4 muscles, and its quote unquote only job is to keep the ball in the socket. It is a big job, but that's all it does. And most people who go to a chiro or physio seem to get the band exercises, and they might assess the muscles independently, but in reality, they work as part of a team. And I can understand the isolating then integrating concept. But generally, there's also another concept of open and closed chain. This is more for the PTs out there, but an open chain would be a bench press, for example, because you're moving the weight, so the kinetic chain's open. Doing a push-up would be closed chain because the kinetic chain is closed. And the shoulder's safest position is you being in a 4-point position in a closed chain environment. That's the safest position, because that's where we first started conditioning our shoulder as a child crawling. So most people need to go back to that phase first, get proficient in that phase, which shouldn't take too long, and then work up to the open chain band stuff. Now, there's also probably no less than 8 organs that directly refer via afferent drives to the shoulder. Liver on the right, stomach on the left, spleen and pancreas on the left, gallbladder right. If it gets bad enough, it'll go to the left. Pleura, heart, lung, lobes of the lung, thyroid, parathyroid. So all of these seemingly completely unrelated structures can and often do refer into the shoulder. Now, if it's a viscerosomatic, it won't be as precisely sore as, say, some kind of tendinopathy or tendinosis or, something bone on bone or a fracture or something like that. It'll be more general for the entire shoulder. It'll just ache and feel weird. That's more typical. It's less general, so it's more typical of viscerosomatic to be more general. Now, if there's any restrictions in the rib cage or the thoracic spine in particular, even the neck, but more commonly thoracic, then you can see if the rib cage is locked up. And the best kind of way I could explain this without showing you is if you were to lock up your spine and really hunch forward and lock up, then try and throw something, you'll notice how much more effort it is for your shoulder to get the task done. Now, that's kind of more of an extreme example, but you think day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, you can see how a shoulder could get irritated and eventually get worn out. So that's how most shoulders go. Now, if the rib cage isn't restricted and the thoracic spine can be straight, and if you notice, if you lift up your sternum to the roof, your shoulders naturally fall back into place. So that's the start and finish point, ideally for most shoulders, but very few people have that correct posture to really hold it there. Most people's shoulders, if you think about your posture all day, think about where your shoulders sit. Most people's shoulders sit forward. Very few people are probably too upright in my experience. They are out there, but generally they're forward for most people. And a lot of people will try and open their chest up by stretching their pecs. If that doesn't really hold, I can recommend opening up the chest more by laying over a Swiss wall or something like that to get some more reverse arch in the thoracic, but also pay attention to your breathing, because the pec muscles often play witness to the pleura of the lung. If you're a chest breather, that pleura will become quite tight and lose its elasticity over time. Therefore, your shoulder will kind of come into itself. So the muscles often play witness to visceral tension. And it's a very, very, very much overlooked aspect of therapy as well. So you can try breath work, belly breathing. And the thing about breath work is, the most important thing about breath work is the mechanics of the breath, not how deep you go or what the theme of the breathwork session is. It's the mechanics of the actual breath. Keep in mind that every movement that you do puts a further engram into the nervous system. So if you're doing a breathwork session as an example, and let's say you do 1,000 breaths in a certain amount of time, But it only takes 300 to 500 repetitions for that to become an engram into the nervous system. So if you're trying to hype yourself up, breathing into your chest and the neck and getting that kind of excited response, but you're doing that for a prolonged period of time with the incorrect mechanics, and you don't have the existing software to override that with proper breathing mechanics, then you're driving further dysfunction and stress and sympathetic tone further into the system. And not only does that keep you more and more stressed and probably more acidic, but it takes away the foundation of the shoulder. And therefore, if your chest and rib cage and spine can't move properly, your shoulder will. Your shoulder's got some, I think, 16,000 different ranges of motion, which can be differentiated between 1 to 3 degrees. And keep in mind that the shoulder is often a slave to the upper neck and head. So I won't get into the eyes and the jaws and all that kind of stuff. Now, it's really hard to determine where the shoulder finishes and the neck starts, or the chest starts relative to the shoulder. And so there's no real definition. I think for me, everything's disconnected to everything. So I think it's really important that we start to see not just a joint or a part of the body as part of the body, but it is part, not a part of the body, it's part of the body. A quick test you could do yourself or with someone that you know who has a sore shoulder is what's called the Adson Wright test. You can do this simply by getting them to sit down, take their radial pulse, should be an inch or two underneath the thumb on the wrist, have it by their side, take the arm away, abduct the arm 30 degrees. If the pulse changes or diminishes, then it's likely a thoracic inlet problem. Thoracic inlet is from the neck out to the first rib. If they then bring it up to 90 degrees and the pulse changes, then there's something likely pulling on the shoulder. Now, to give you an example, if you to grab your t-shirt at the belly button level, scrunch your t-shirt and pull it, you'll feel the t-shirt pull your shoulder down. Well, that's happening with the connective tissue in the body. So when we adduct our arm and the pulse diminishes, what's happening is something down below pulling the shoulder forward. Now, I can work on the shoulder all I want, but until that bit of tissue down below is released, my shoulder is going to keep overworking whether I want it to or not. So hopefully this just opens the possibilities for a lot of people. Now, if that doesn't diminish or change the pulse, what you can also do is get them to look to the opposite side. That adds a mechanical effect to the assessment. Now, if that is the thing that changes it, then there's likely a mechanical issue from the neck, upper thoracic, maybe rib cage, but there's something more mechanical going on rather than being pulled down from below. So when most people try to condition their shoulder as well, they go straight to the strength stuff, not realizing that to get adequate optimal strength, those joints need to be in optimal alignment first. So that's simply done by stretching the short, tight muscles, strengthening the long and weak ones. But you might need someone skilled to do that, physio, chiro, check practitioner, etc. Because it can be different for different people, and people have different stress responses to different things. And the shoulder is one of those parts of the body that we just love to dump all our stuff there. But in the shoulder, typically the upper traps and pecs are probably the most overworked, as well as different parts of the deltoid. People seem to neglect the serratus anterior, posterior, inferior, superior, all the muscles that you can't see in the mirror in the gym. But all of those will greatly aid your shoulder if it is painful. Now, speaking of emotional dumps, the shoulders often do represent what we would perceive to be the burden of our existence. So we hold the weight of the world on our shoulders. The left shoulder typically represents the feminine or the feminine aspect of ourselves, the right, the masculine. And it can be quite tricky for people to let that go. Because when we have the weight of the world on our shoulders, we also have the responsibility of everyone else, again, in our own perception. Now, most people carry around a backpack full of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual bricks that are heavier than anything in the gym, as Nila and I have spoken about before. It opens up several questions. First of all, why are you doing that? And obviously, for most people, it's an unconscious behavior. But if you don't know why you're doing that, then are you able to drop the backpack off? Is that an option for you? A lot of people will take on the responsibility of others, neglecting themselves, and end up resenting the person they're taking care of. Also, someone might have done something in the past. They feel guilty and they feel they have to take care of a person, place, thing in an attempt to make up for it. A lot of the times as well, a woman will think she has to do everything for everyone because it's largely ingrained into our society. As well as the man thinks he has to work his hands to the bone to be the provider for the family. But having the weight of the world on your shoulders, first of all, you've got to ask, whose world have I got on my shoulders? Is my world enough? Is my world, a lot of people will think, I don't deserve my world on my shoulders because I have to take care of everyone else, or I'm selfish if I put me first, or whatever that story is. That's often traced back to society or some kind of religious ideology that if you're selfish, you go to hell, or whatever the story is. But if you think of the weight of the world, first of all, what is your world? Who's the most important person in your world? Ideally, that answer is you. A lot of people will say my husband, my wife, my kids, all that kind of stuff. But before you're a husband, wife, mother, father, you are a person. And until that person's balanced out, you have nothing to give to the other person or other people in that situation. So again, comes back down to you defining what is your world. What world requires, a better way to say that would be, what mental health needs are required for that world? What physical health needs are required for that world? What emotional health needs are required for that world, etc. And a lot of people will carry other people's stuff for them. Your classic empath will try and take the burden from other people to stop them suffering. But a lot of people also inherit guilt, shame, grief, um, sadness, whatever it might be. And a lot of people will take that on to try and take the burden off. Might be father, mother, whoever. And a lot of the time, unconsciously, that is really a desire to be approved of. So I'm going to take this emotion from you so you don't have to feel it. In exchange, I get your approval. That's a really, really, really common story, unconscious story, but a really common story that a lot of people tell themselves. And some people just worry themselves near to death with that. And some people can let it go. And in some people, the story is too strong for them to let it go, and it becomes a part of them. And I've seen it lead to some crazy things. I'll just leave it there for that. So I don't want to mention names. But essentially, think about what we hold on to things with: hands, arms. But you can't have a hand or an arm without a shoulder. So all of these body parts get affected by the things that we hold on to. And everyone holds on to something at some point. And at one point, it would have served you, no doubt. It would have definitely served you. But then I would challenge you, is it serving you today? Is it likely to serve you tomorrow? If it's not, then why are you giving so much power to it? What's the part of you that needs that for you? A lot of people will have like a child, something would be triggered in them in what Carl Jung would call a core archetype. And adding to that, what Carolyn Miss would call a survival archetype. The core archetype being the mother and the father, but also the child. So, what part of the child got awoken in that holding the world, not letting go part of you? What part of the mother? Maybe your mother had a great desire to be loved and nurtured, and needed to be loved and nurtured in a very similar way that she gave it, but then didn't get it the way she needed it. She got it in other ways, but she didn't recognize it. There's a high likelihood the child is going to take that on, because as Carl Jung said, all children are tasked with the unmet lives of the parents. So all children are tasked with the unmet lives of the parents. And that's some people, I think some people take that way too seriously, but it's often an unconscious thing that we came here to do. So If you're not sure why you can't hold on, take a look at your parents. You'll be able to see yourself in them. If you don't have a good relationship with your parents or find it trouble to communicate, the trick I learned was write down 3 positive and negative things about each parent, and write down 3 positive and negative things about yourself. And when I've done this with patients, they've all but shit their pants because they're pretty much identical. The things they don't like about their parents are exactly the things that they do. And then that really starts to waken up the, oh, I am holding on to something. I need to start letting this go. Then there's lots of things one can do from there. But essentially, the psychological theme of the shoulders is the weight of the world on your shoulders. And really, if I can bring that to light and that resonates, then congratulations. Your shoulders are your teacher. And hopefully this episode gave you something to work with. Thank you for hanging in there with me. Went a bit more over time than I thought. That's all right. Thanks for having a jam sesh. Going to have some guests on the podcast soon, so that's very exciting. So thank you all for listening. If you like our show, please let us know. Otherwise, it can be our little secret. But any review, any comment, etc., helps us grow. And if you want to share our episode, that would be we'd be very, very grateful for that. The more we can grow, the more we can help people. And that's what we're about. So see you all next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.
You've been listening to The Wizard and the Priestess. Thanks for stopping by. Stay connected and be open.